I'll tell you what, Mike has always been one of Jack and I's favorites, absolute favorites. He probably doesn't know us, but at some point in time we were probably stalking him. But I mean, he's been in the business for about 36 years, and just an amazing man. And it's crazy because when we go to events, when I first came into the company about 15 years ago. One of my first events I was able to go to was one of Jimmy Meyer's $1 Million events that he had out in Florida, but that was the only one. Then they stopped. So I was exposed to Mike at that point in time. I thought, God, who is this guy? I mean, he is absolutely one of the funniest persons, not only in Primerica, he is the funniest, but even outside of Primerica. I mean, the guy could literally be performing in Las Vegas, have his own show, and doing a road show, literally. But one of the things that has impressed me more than anything that I've learned over the years as I got to know him and just hear what he had to say is his priorities. He absolutely has always had his priorities in line. God first, family second, business third. I mean, he's got a beautiful wife. Which Kathy is. It's amazing. My wife says, I mean, her and Kathy Marchesani could absolutely be sisters, and it's just amazing. Got two great kids, but his business. I mean, his business has exploded. He wasn't the fastest out of the chutes, and I love the story he told us last July at Jimmy's $1 Million event last summer, and he talked about it and he showed the graph. How he was stuck at a certain income. But the thing is, what it is that's a lot of people. That's probably what most people go through in Primerica. They're not all, some of these millionaires like Mario Arizon who just come in a matter of 5, 6, 7 years they're on their way. I mean that's not what normally happens. And what happens is what I love about Mike's story is the fact that he exemplifies perseverance, hard work, determination. And I'll tell you what, that's what just really hit us hard and why we admire Mike so much. I mean, he was even featured recently in Impact Magazine as one of the Jersey boys. And it was crazy. I listened to Mike, I listened to your story and see, wow, he was on Wall Street. I mean, it's just amazing, and just seeing where you've come from and what you've done, and see you plant your flag here. So we're so thankful that you did. But I'll tell you what, the biggest thing that I see in Mike is his heart. I mean, it's just huge heart that this guy has. As a matter of fact, he probably doesn't even remember, Mike, you probably don't remember this, but over at Jimmy's, I mean, you took time to speak with Jackie, myself, Darlene and Joey, some of our RVPs, and you just took time when everybody was wanting a piece of you because literally you stole the event last year. I mean, you and your RVPs, I mean, it was just amazing. But just the heart that you have and being able to make people feel special, I know that's one of the main reasons why you accomplished and hit that milestone of going over 1 million. But I'm going to let you take it from there. I don't want to steal your thunder, but can't wait to hear from you, Mike.
I got to tell you, man, I'm sitting here with chills, and I just want to thank you for that sincerely beautiful introduction. And it means a lot to me, people like you saying things like that. Those are the true gifts of our business, are the relationships and the friendships that you make and the people that you come in contact with. So I appreciate those kind words. Sometimes your self-image isn't exactly what people think it may be, and it's always nice to hear someone say nice things, and especially the things that you said. I'd rather not be known for the cars I drive and the watches I wear and the shoes I wear. I'd rather be remembered for the conversations I had, and those are the most meaningful things to me. I want to congratulate you guys, you and Jackie, for making 47 grand in the month of May. That's no easy feat, and that's something that I would imagine is kind of enjoyable when you do it, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and then a $40,000 base shop in June is a number. I hope you realize that you're in rare air. I think we publicize as a company all these magnificent feats. We're constantly highlighting these like extraordinarily magnificent feats, and I think it makes regular folks feel like sometimes we just feel badly. I mean, I know that I get mixed emotions when I see some of the things that take place at the convention. I look up and I go, man, that's amazing. I want to go find someone like that I could override. But then I also start feeling about, like, what's wrong with me? How come I can't do $100,000, or why haven't I done $100,000 at a base? So $40,000 base shop is an incredible task, and just keep that going. And then I just wanted to recognize Caesar, because I used to write premium, and, I try very hard to never have to write business ever again. I really, early on in my career, and I'll talk a little bit about this, my mental anchor always was to create a business whereby which I could become unnecessary in it. At the RVP meeting, Randy Godfrey talked about feeling irrelevant, and that motivated him to get back on his horse and go after the Circle of Champions. But I will tell you that irrelevancy within the business in a positive way, if you can make $1 million a year and you become irrelevant in your business, it means you created a business that other people are thriving in. And so I never really want to be irrelevant, but I wanted to become unnecessary, meaning, God forbid something happened to me, our business was going to continue to grow and earn whether or not I can get out and do it myself. And that's really the definition, and what I'm going to talk to you guys about is being able to create a business that allows you to build other people to a point where you can do it later on in your career, do the things you love to do, or not do the things you don't like to do by choice, not by force. And so I wanted to congratulate Caesar for doing 22,000 in personal production, because I know what it takes to do that. I never hit the number 22,000, but there were months where I did 11 and 12. Consistently wrote 4,000. Back when I was writing it, the average app was probably $400. So I was probably writing twice as many apps then as I would have had to write now to get the same premium. But I know what it takes to personally produce, and it's quite a feat. So congratulations, Caesar. That's awesome. I was, Mark asked me to help out, and you guys. First of all, I wanted to say that you guys come from one of the greatest hierarchies in the company. Your bloodline that goes all the way up to Safford it's an incredible bloodline when you take it down through Jim Meyer and through Jim Penn and Mark and Kathy Marchesani. I mean, I don't know if I could teach you guys anything that you don't already know as far as the X's and O's of the business are concerned. I think you're probably one of the most fundamentally sound teams of people in the company. Mark and Kathy are two of the most fundamentally sound leaders in the company. Jim Penn is, I think, probably the most underrated, unsung, incredibly professional, focused dude that I've ever met, and you've been exposed to that. You've been exposed to Jimmy's excitement, enthusiasm, and so you guys have, you have thoroughbred breeding stock above you, and you're all really good at what you do. But I wanted to share with you some of the things that I think have helped me over the years. I'll tell you, Dave, you hit the nail on the head. I want everybody to know, most people aren't rocket ships in Primerica. I'd love for you to take the pressure off yourselves and stop beating on yourselves because you're not a rocket ship. Now, if you become a rocket ship, that's great. The great thing about this business is we can become rocket ships and launch into the atmosphere at any time we want. But most of us are kind of tank-like. We trudge along, we make mistakes, hopefully we learn from our mistakes, and we fix the things that are broken. We tend to sometimes feel sorry for ourselves, take a moment to reflect on how horrible we are, and then we spend our energy beating ourselves up and having really awful self-talk about we suck. And it's funny, I play golf, and I'm a big self-talk guy, and I play golf with a lot of people who don't come from a business that we come from, and they say things to themselves like, oh my God, you're the worst golfer in the whole freaking world. They say it to themselves. They say, oh my God, you suck. I can't believe, what a horrible shot. Like, why do you even play golf, Mike? And I grab people and I say, let me just tell you something. You're my friend, and I don't like you talking to my friend the way you talk to my friend. And I ask people, if you talk to me or your friends the way you talk to yourself on the golf course, would you have any friends? And would you have anybody left to play golf with? Because certainly you wouldn't tell your friend, oh man, you suck. That was the worst shot ever. But in golf, there's this tendency to be able to tell yourself that out loud. And you start to reinforce that, and it's not a good thing. It doesn't leave room for you to believe that you can play better golf. We do the same thing with our self-talk in the business. We say, I could never be a Mario Arizona. I could never be an Ian Pruckner. I'm just not that good. I don't have that personality. I'm not that organized. I don't have those organizational skills. I'm not that disciplined. I think I'm lazy. I might actually be lazy. When I compare myself to these guys, I think I'm lazy. And we say all these horrible things to ourselves. And I'm telling you this because I've said all these horrible things to myself over the years. And I've worked really, really hard. To stop doing that. And I wanted to start out by, if it's okay, reading some notes that I took from an article that I had downloaded. And the article's premise was how to turn external motivation into internal motivation, how to be internally motivated. Because, we come from the convention with lights and fireworks and speakers that are like, professional motivators. And I'm often shocked at the prowess of the speaking depth of talent that exists in this company. They pull people out of obscurity who get up and it's just the most incredible 10 minutes that you ever hear in your life. And you go, oh my God, where the heck did this guy come from? And you leave there and you're all filled up with excitement and energy, and then you come back and you get smacked in the face with life. And that's really where the things where things have to happen. And so I wanted to read some notes for you about from an article that I read about how to really kind of become self-aware and how to turn external motivation into internal motivation. And so bear with me on this, and then I'm going to tie it together with some things that I've done over the years that I think are simple and will help you guys just kind of focus on what will impact your business going forward. So number one is I realized my future self isn't a reliable guy, all right? So your future self isn't going to earn a ton of money and fix everything for you. I think we all have this tendency of going almost in a delusional way. I don't really have to change. Something down the road is going to change for me, and that's going to be my future guy. My future Mike is going to fix all this stuff, right? So your future self isn't going to be healthier. Your future self is not going to be stronger or faster. Your future self isn't going to spend time with your family or take care of the other problems in your life. And I spent years waiting around for my future self, hoping that he'd come through for me. And eventually I realized that my future self was just me, just an ordinary guy making a ton of mistakes over and over and over again. And he wasn't going to pay all my bills, and my future self was just me, as me, the way I am. And so if you expect your future self is going to fix your problems, you got to think again. He or she is not reliable. We are the same old we always were if we're not working on ourselves. So the only person you can really rely on is you, the you that you are right now, and you got to use the resources that you have available right now to make you the right now you, the best right now you guy you can be, or right now girl you can be, and then improve every day so your future you becomes a much better version of the present you. I also realized that a miracle, I do believe in prayer. I do believe in the power of prayer, but I also believe that if you're waiting around for a miracle, there's probably a miracle probably wasn't going to come in and change your current situation. Wishful thinking just makes you complacent. There's this old story, I think y'all probably heard it about, I won't go too far into it, but the guy's boat's sinking, and he starts praying for some help, and a helicopter comes, and he says, no, I'm not getting in, God's going to take care of me. Then a boat comes, and he says, no, God's going to take care of me. And then a Coast Guard comes, he says, no, God's going to take care of me. And he winds up sinking, drowning, and going up to heaven and says, God, I had faith that you were going to take care of me. And he says, who do you think sent the Coast Guard, the boat, and the helicopter? Sometimes you got to stop being complacent and start, taking the signs around you and using those gifts in your advantage. If you keep telling yourself that some miracle will swoop in and solve the problem, you're just giving yourself an excuse not to do anything in the present, right? So the truth is, there's probably not a miracle coming, or maybe the miracle is you, and that's coming on your current path is more, all that's coming on your current path is more of the same stuff that you're going through right now. And without facing it, it just kind of compounds. Jimmy said the things that you ignore grow, and the things that you face head on, you get to solve. So I started to look at what I could do myself to make the problems I saw in myself go away. And once I realized I was the only person who could actually change my situation, I started looking at what I could do, in the moment to actually fix the problem. What steps would actually lead me to a better situation within Primerica, a better life. I'll tell you, I read this book by Brian Tracy years and years ago called Focal Point. And in the book Focal Point, it says you really know all the answers to the challenges that you face, but we always look externally for the answers. And we're going to counselors and guidance people and friends and relatives and coaches, and we're asking them what it is we need to do. And they don't really know all the details. We ask people to fill in the blanks for us when they don't know really all the missing puzzle pieces that are going on in our lives. And the person who really knows the complete picture is us. And yet we externally go to outside forces for answers. So in the book, Focal Point, it said, write down all the things that you're missing and write yourself questions at night on a yellow pad, right? So one of the questions I wrote years ago when I wrote the book was, how do I get to $1 million in income? And then I took the yellow pad and it says go to like a silent place that you can really not be interrupted. So there's a lake that was between my home and my office that was really nice. I had a park bench, and so I used to take my yellow pad, you guys, and I'd write the answer. I'd sleep on the question, and I'd write the answer, right? So I'll give you the SNSD thing. The SNSD thing was, you needed 9 first generations to get to SNSD. I only had 7 firsts at the time, and to become a $1 million income earner, you needed as much comp as you could get. And so when I started answering all the questions, $1 million income earner, SNSD, I needed to get 2 more firsts. And in order to get first, you can't get first unless you have a base shop, right? And you can't have a base shop unless you have people in your base shop. And my base shop was really skinny with code numbers, so I kind of broke it down to I got to get some code numbers. And how do I get some code numbers? And it was I got to get some people. How do I get some people? I don't have that many folks to begin with. Well, I'm probably going to have to do it myself. And so I broke all these questions, this one question, all the way down to this one answer, which was, I need to start getting out there and prospecting for people into my base shop that I could wind up getting licensed, trained, and developed so that I can get some regional leaders that are starting to get really good so I can promote to first and get to SNSD. And when I get to SNSD, we can start doing the numbers that are qualified SNSD, and I can start getting bonuses, and those bonuses are going to help me get towards the $1 million mark, right? So I asked myself the questions, And I got myself the answers. Now, sometimes you don't want the answers, right? Sometimes the answers suck, and you don't want to listen to the answer. But at least you know the answer, right? And you're not kidding yourself. So I started asking myself questions. I started thinking, what do I need to take that's going to lead me towards getting the things that I want? And it involved like a lot of research and a lot of reading and a lot of self-improvement. It involved taking ideas and seeing if the things that I was thinking about were even possible for me to do and how I was going to go do it. I started bringing other people into my world that were better at the things that I needed to get better at, and I started to ask specific questions and started to find out and fill the gaps in my own personal inadequacies by looking at the people that are good at stuff that I was not good at, and then trying to break that stuff down to things that I could do. And I focused mostly on individual little baby steps. What could I do today to improve things immediately? What steps can I take? And then I put the drawbacks of my current path in front of me. I was very real about where I was going to wind up if I continued on that path. And the final thing holding me back was the sense that the current path I was on was still an okay path, right? Like I would rationalize and say, well, I'm not as good as so-and-so, or I'm not making this much money, we're not being able to live the, dream life, but I'm, doing okay, or I'm doing a little bit better than everybody else around me. And so I was still on an okay path in my mind. And, I guess the word comfort is the enemy of the word success. When you get comfortable, lackadaisical, complacent, apathetic, it takes away that burning desire to go win. So I started tearing it apart bit by bit. I looked at every single thing I did and asked myself, why am I doing that? Is the time I'm spending on those things actually leading towards getting better, getting the job done? One of the toughest things I did, and I hope I'm not rambling, but I was very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to be very deliberate with honesty about what I did to alter the path that I was on. From a distance, some people would look at me at the time I was making these changes and saying they wish they were there, but I was looking down the road wishing I was somewhere else. And when you're discontent where you are, no matter how good you're doing, it's really hard to feel great about yourself when you know you could do better. And so I started really kind of thinking, what am I doing and why am I doing it, and is what I'm doing help me? Now, one of the things I did was I evaluated my week based on productive activities that I broke down, and productive activities was what am I doing today that's going to lead me to find a new person who could join my team and in 60 days be licensed and capable of taking an IBA and a life app on their own. And so at the end of the week on Sunday night, I looked at how many hours I worked, and I only counted the hours that I worked that were based on productive activities, right? So here's what that did for me, Dave. When I was doing conference calls like this, or if I was driving down to an RVP that I already had's office to do an op meeting for them, or if I was doing a fast start school for somebody else, or if I was doing my own fast start school, and I got to Sunday night feeling like, wow, what a really productive week I had. I worked 70 hours this week. Wow. But I was no further along in the size of my base shop. I started to calculate my hours of productive activity and not count the hours of what I considered non-productive activity. Wow, is that a painful thing to do? Because then you get to the end of the week and go, wow, I only worked 1 hour. I mean, I had a lot of busy time, but I only worked 1 hour. And so I started seeing what I was doing that was just bullshit, part of my language, and I started figuring out, okay, I'm going to make a conscious decision to work and apply energy to the areas that are going to really make immediate change and immediate impact on the change that I want to make. And I recognize if I stuck with making good choices every single day, then I would turn the ship around. There was actually no way for me to stop turning the ship around if I was making the right choices every day. And the ones that I perceived as good choices that I recognized in the past were really not great choices. So after that, it was simply a matter of time until real change began to occur, right? It was like every day you do the right thing, every day you make the right changes, and then changes begin to feel natural, right? You feel like you're in a rhythm. You wake up, you don't have to, you become what they call subconsciously competent, where you wake up and you're motivated by the endorphins that you are releasing within you because of the task completions that you're accomplishing that are those that you have defined as productive activity. And so rather than having to listen to 700 tapes on motivation and having that motivation last until tomorrow morning, what you do is you wake up tomorrow morning self-motivated because yesterday you did the things that are leading you to change for the better, and then you see those results. And task completion and positive results are motivators, and they create a desire in you to continue doing those things, because simply the truth of the matter is everybody wants to feel good, and when you do stuff that actually leads you to make $47,000 in a month, or actually leads you to have a $40,000 base shop, or actually leads you to find a guy that does $22,000 in personal production, or if you're a Caesar who did $22,000 in personal production, I could almost guarantee that Caesar wakes up in the morning going, how am I going to replicate that? That's so freaking good. Getting all these accolades, having Jim Penn and Jim Meyer and Mark Marchesani say nice things about me, having Dave and Jackie say nice things about me, being talked about on conference calls, getting paid a lot of money, getting referrals. Those are really fun things to feel. When you feel those things, you become self-motivated. Self-motivation comes from the actions that you take that lead to positive results that wind up making you feel good, and the feel good is what makes you want to replicate the activity, and the replication of the activity is what ultimately leads you to the success. And it's pretty cool stuff, right? And that's where real change comes, and that's where self-motivation comes from. Even those of us who come up with a really compelling why, the compelling why is a really important part of everything, but I think every one of us love our children. You know, if you go to the wall of why, I bet you saw a ton of families up there. But a ton of those families are still in the same place they were in a year ago or 2 years ago when they stuck that same picture up, except their family's now 2 years older. The question is, what did you do between Indianapolis and Atlanta for your why? I think it's awesome. Look, I'd cut a digit off each finger for my family. But that's great to say, but what am I doing in real life that's going to lead me to show them or actually make me feel good about what it is I'm doing for my why? Hope that makes sense to you guys. So here's some tips that I think in conjunction with that. Here's some tips that I think after the convention you could do. I think you got to become really self-aware. I think you got to do a self-analysis about what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And then you got to become a visibly different person. And you got to show real change by your actions, not your words. All right, guys? I think it's great to proclaim public proclamations. For those of us that are competitive, put us in a position where we have to perform. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't publicly proclaim what your intentions are. I'm just saying that you should follow up your public proclamations with action. I will tell you this, if you are a procrastinator, stop putting off until tomorrow things that should have been done yesterday. And the best way to do that is action. And I know this sounds ridiculous because obviously if you're a procrastinator, action is your problem. But if you force yourself to do one thing, the death of procrastination is guaranteed. And I have a saying, it goes ARF. You could put ARA, action rids fear, action rids anxiety. So when you are anxious about talking to a stranger about Primerica, the best way to get rid of your anxiousness is to talk to a stranger about Primerica. If you are procrastinating about talking to a stranger about Primerica, the best thing you can do is rid the anxiety that's causing the procrastination by talking to a stranger about Primerica. Which leads me to, I'll tell you something that you should do today, is download Bob Wison's talk at the convention. It was 10 minutes, and he broke everything down to one very simple thing. He said that the company has become a very complicated place to live, except it really isn't, because all you really got to do is get really, really good at talking to people every day about Primerica. You just got to get really, really good at talking to people every day about Primerica. You got to walk the talk, you got to walk the walk, and you got to start to act and behave like the person that you want to become. Even though you may not be Jim Meyer, I think you have to smile more. I believe that you have to become the most enthusiastic version of yourself. I don't think you have to be me. I don't think you have to be Meyer. I think Jim Penn is an enthusiastic version of Jim Penn. He's not a goofy dude. He's a very serious guy. I have a lot of fun with Jim Penn. He's not Jim Meyer, but he's the most enthusiastic version of himself that he could possibly be. I think you have to simplify everything that you are doing right now. I think you should take the time to simplify things and break things down to its simplest terminology and its simplest action step. And I'm going to leave you with this. You got to get really, really good at talking to people about Primerica every day. And in order to get really, really good at talking to people about Primerica every day, you've got to come up with simple icebreakers that are comfortable to you, that you will say in your culture, that you will say in your language, that you will say within your comfort zone, within how you speak, within how you communicate, not how Mario Arizona communicates, not how Ian Proctor communicates, not how Omar Oropesa communicates, not how Jim Penn communicates, or Jim Meyer, or me, or Mark Marchesani, or Kathy Marchesani, how you communicate. And then you got to just get it down, where you walk up to somebody and you say, hey, let me ask you something. Are you the kind of person who keeps their ears open for opportunity? Whatever it is that you feel comfortable doing, you got to start getting real simplified at doing it, and you've got to get after it. I started with a reminder when I first started in the business that I needed to talk to people. It wasn't as gregarious as you guys think I am right now. I actually was a little bit introverted. I am not introverted anymore. I will talk to anybody about anything at any time. I conditioned myself to do it. I know nobody believes this, but I had a friggin' horrible fear of public speaking. My default mode was not to be a talker. The guys at my country club and people know me in social environments ask me if I ever shut up now, but there was a point in my life that I did not talk, and I forced myself to do it. There's also a book out there about rejection-proofing yourself. I think it's called The Rejection Quotient or something. But I never read it, and I ran into somebody who said to me, oh, I know what you're doing. You're doing the rejection quotient. I said, what's that? They said, you ask for everything, everywhere, everything you do, everywhere you go, you ask for something. 90% of the time you get a no. 10% of the time you get a yes, and the yes will change your life. And what happens is you build up a resistance to rejection by asking for things. And an example of it was I was at the guy next to me at the counter heard me asking the counter person over and over again for a first class ticket, and I didn't want to use mileage and I didn't want to pay for it. And the person at the counter is like, no, I can't give you a first class ticket unless you pay for it or you use miles. Like, well, what if I told you that I'm a really good son and my mom really loves me a lot and she likes me to be comfortable? And the lady laughed, and I said it again, and I said it a different way, and I said, I'm pretty big. If anything breaks out in first class, I'm going to be the first guy standing up. And they laughed, and I just kept coming. And I don't get first class most of the time. Sometimes I do. But what I've done is I developed a resistance to rejection where I really don't give a crap anymore. And so I used to put pennies in my left pocket, 10 pennies, and when I got done, at the end of the day, I would move my penny from one side of my left pocket to my right pocket, and if I got home at night and I had pennies in my left pocket on the way home, I wouldn't go home until I talked to somebody about Primerica. So I'd go out to an all-night Wendy's or a diner, and I would make sure I moved my pennies. And that practice got me in the subconscious zone of looking around and seeing everybody as a prospective opportunity to create an RVP. So I went longer than I wanted to, but I really believe that true lasting change does not come externally, it comes internally. And there are simple baby step actions that you can do that create habits that will cause you to do things that will forever change you in the business. And I'll tell you this, there's not one of you on this call that can't do the things that you need to do that will lead you to be a six-figure income-earning RVP and beyond. If you get over your anxiousness, anxiety, preconceived notions of yourself, negative self-image, negative self-talk, and just start taking little baby steps towards your ultimate goal, whatever that is. I want to thank you for honoring me the way you did, Dave. I appreciate those kind words. I want to let you know that I don't take it lightly that one of the greatest leadership couples in the company asked me to speak to you guys and trusted me as a steward of their business by allowing me to talk to you guys. I have admired the Marchesanis and their business for my entire career, and I admire you guys more than you'll know, and I want to thank you for listening to me this morning. Thank you, guys.
Wow, Mike. I mean, talk about delivering this morning. I mean, that was absolutely amazing. I mean, I have like 2-3 pages of notes here. And, geez, from now on, I think you should be remembered as like Professor Mike.
Isn't that weird?
I don't know if it doesn't say this from what I've read, but you got to have like a degree in psychology or something. I mean, it's amazing with the mind and where you're coming from, because I mean, you just took it to a whole nother level, because I know a lot of times we do focus on the why, but I mean, I saw you exemplify. It's like the why not. What are you going to do, to reach your why? I mean, you just took it to a whole nother level. And,
thank you.
I'm just telling you, Mike, that was absolutely amazing. I know everybody on this conference call, I'm sure will just take away some amazing nuggets that will help them. I mean, going into the rest of the year and just do some amazing things. And wow, just can't tell you how much and just so appreciative of what you were able to cover and bless us with this morning.
Thank you, man. Hey, I got to tell you, I got a degree in psychology through being in Primerica, and if you're self-aware, if you're strong enough, I'm telling you guys, if you're strong enough to become self-aware, if you're strong enough to be honest with yourself, Dave, I'll tell you, the most painful thing I've ever done is be honest with myself. It is so difficult. We all, look, I hope you all are listening to me loud and clear. Jim Meyer inside is a fragile little boy, okay? Mike Pressler, inside I'm a fragile little boy. Mark Marchesani is a fragile little boy. I do not care what you think about what you see in our external portrayal of ourselves. inside of us is a fragile little boy, fragile little girls who question ourselves. We carry insecurities. I don't care. I watched an interview, Dave, with the beat. God, what's the Beatle that is now performing again? He's the only survivor, one of two survivors. I can't believe his name is going out of my head. Give me the four Beatles: Ringo Starr, John Lennon, George Harrison. Who's the last guy? I can't remember.
Gosh.
Paul McCartney. I don't know why I blanked on the only Beatle I was trying to talk about. Yep. Paul McCartney was interviewed, right? Paul McCartney may be the most prophetic, prolific, impactful human being in music history, right? The Beatles changed the world of music, and Paul McCartney and John Lennon certainly were the authors of some of the greatest music, and in his interview, and I think he's pushing 80 now, he said he still has self-doubt. He still isn't completely satisfied with his work. He still wonders if he's good, if all his music was great, you know. He's pleased with the world's response to what they did, and he's shocked. But I'm thinking to myself, Paul McCartney is saying he's still a fragile little dude from England inside. Well, gee, if he can be a fragile little dude inside, I could admit to you that I still get anxious when I'm about to speak. I still get anxious when I'm going to do an appointment. I still get anxious when I'm about to talk. I was at a restaurant yesterday, and I asked this sharp waiter, "Hey, let me ask you a question. What do? Do you do this full time?" And I was a little nervous, and he was probably 25 years old. Just a little nervous. Just a little nervous enough to give me enough of an edge to get the guy to put a contact in my phone to reach out to him to talk about Primerica. Don't kid yourselves, you guys. We all do this in spite of fear and self-doubt. It's just, you know, courage is being courageous isn't being so stupid that you don't realize there's danger, right? The guys that ran up the steps and the girls that ran up the steps at 9/11 put their backpacks on, grabbed the hose, and looked at the top of that building, pretty much knowing it was going to be the last staircase they ever climbed. They didn't go up there thinking, I'll be done in 20 minutes and I can have a sandwich with my buddy. Courageousness comes from, and bravery comes from understanding the risk or feeling the anxiousness and acting in spite of it, right? So don't kid yourselves, guys. It's no different for anybody. And I go to the convention and I see some of these dudes acting really cocky, but I inside them are scared little boys and girls. And so it's just take a little baby step and believe in yourself a little bit more. Do a little bit of reading, read some, listen to Audible, read your Bible, read your favorite book, 10 pages, listen to your favorite thing. Get yourself some confidence in the morning and at night, and just take some baby steps, and you guys can kill it. Just go finish the month strong, and focus on distribution. Don't get sidetracked with product sales, you guys. Get into the build a distribution business. I'm babbling, but I love Mark, and I want to leave you with this.
Refine the next step in your.
You know the saying, pound for pound, we're the toughest group out there. Get really, really sick and not be able to go out